I don't think there is one person here that ever grew up thinking, you know what would be lovely? Falling into addiction and drugs. Yet it was as I grew that I saw my friends and family being taken away by marijuana, ecstasy, alcohol, and cigarettes. These substances all took from my family and friends and made them into people I barely recognize at this point. And in these people, I recognized a recurring pattern. They were all falling into this in adolescence.
Substance abuse is basically falling into an addiction of substances, especially alcohol or drugs.
But that complicated vocabulary isn't necessary. Let's talk about addiction in teenagers and how substance abuse damages and prevents them from being the persons that they can reach to be. It damages themselves and their brains.
Today, half of new drug users are under the age of 18, which is a shocking number, and this has never happened before.
Touching back on the human brain, it starts to develop maturely until you're 25. So teenagers are damaging their prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of making smart decisions. This is why the teenagers that go into drug addiction fall more into the problem, as they are not completely reasonable.
This is why teenagers that are shy or more intuitive prefer high activities all the time.
One of the parts of the brain that is majorly affected is the hippocampus, which is in charge of producing the memories we remember. Another part that is also affected in a negative way is the brain's reward systems, which are in charge of producing dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that makes us feel pleasure.
Drugs throw your dopamine levels up, and this makes you need more doses of the substance every time you take it. It creates something that is called tolerance, and it is not a very good thing to develop.
Drug addiction has long been and still is a problem around the world. There are many different reasons why teenagers get addicted to drugs, but also there are very different levels as to how much teenagers and adults depend on drugs, and this depends on the certain types of substances that they consume.
Some people start taking drugs just because of their curiosity, but others so as to improve and become better at sports and in their physical performance, or to reduce stress and get rid of depression. Teenagers especially start because of emotional struggles, peer pressure, and as a way to escape their problems. In the end, it is not about taking drugs, but about taking care of yourself and making sure it's not too late.
Taking drugs can have many effects on people's lives and change it forever. Not only do teenagers find it hard to cope with the regular stresses of life, but their academic and social life are impacted in a very negative way.
You can easily tell if a family member or friend has a really bad problem. If you notice any weight loss, change in friends, unusual smells of breath, and unexplained need for money, and frequently getting into trouble, you can easily notice.
It is a fact that taking drugs clouds your judgment, so it is much easier to take decisions that you will regret. It is extremely sad to see the amount of girls that end up pregnant or with STDs because they took decisions while they were under the influence of drugs.
Now we're going to start analyzing things within our own community. We don't have to take it that far. We conveyed surveys here in school, and the answers that we got were quite shocking.
First, we conducted the question, how old were you when you first started to consume an illicit substance? It is shocking to see that the most common age was 14 to 16 years old, which is our own age. 63% were that age. 17 to 19 were 9%, which is very sad because 19 is already a legal age to drink. While 8 to 10 years old, 5% were 8 to 10 years old. And 11 to 13, we got a shocking 17%.
Next, we asked them which drugs or illegal substances they have tried, and we got amazing, shocking results. So we saw that 80% of the people that we surveyed, out of 100, have tried alcohol. Impressive for people that were mostly underage. We also saw that 60% of people had taken tobacco, mostly in cigarette form. We also saw 14% taking ecstasy, 10% only that have taken none, and then an impressive amount, 29 for marijuana, and 14 for other substances, which we can only imagine how bad they are.
To continue, we asked you this question. How often do you consume them? So, 8% answered once a year. And the most shocking number was 28%, which is once every week. Then, the number below was 72%, which is once a month. And the number below 70% is 60%, which is 2 weeks. So, as you can see in the graph, the numbers are very shocking for most students our age.
We also asked the question, do you consider having a problem with addiction? And even though we had 60% that said yes, that it's a very small number, most of them said no. The next one is, do you know someone with a drug problem? And here we can see that 82% of the people said yes, and this is a very large number. And this tells us that people that answered no were not being honest and that they really have a problem but didn't say yes. And many people don't recognize that they have it.
Drug abuse is a problem that happens mostly because of lack of prevention.
As teenagers, it is extremely easy to know if someone has consumed drugs at a party because of many symptoms such as red eyes, dizziness, and lack of being present in the party.
Due to age, teenagers are more likely to experience and experiment with new things more often. So, if you're a kid, if you try new things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad kid. Even the brightest and most responsible kid ever can become addicted to drugs.
In the end, we, especially from San Pedro, need to acknowledge the seriousness of substance abuse. We live in a society that ignores that underage drinking and substance abuse is not right. We live in a society that ignores the fact that teenagers getting into alcohol and cigarettes is alarming, but will then be shocked when we see them getting to harder drugs like marijuana, ecstasy, or other substances. We live in a society that has ignored the seriousness of substance abuse for too long, and it is with this talk that we hope to motivate you and bring to light the negative effects of substance abuse. We hope for a change not only in our society, not only in San Pedro, but in the planet.